I had to start again with my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away.
The Star-Spangled Banner is our national anthem. I do not think it's the best possible choice and would prefer America the Beautiful, which extols so much more than victory in a battle which occurred during the War of 1812. Rather, it speaks of the natural beauty and glory of our incredible nation. It speaks of the determination of those who helped establish our country and expanded the borders as they traveled west. It speaks of the sacrifices of those who heroically fought for what our nation stands for. It speaks of the eventual fulfillment of the dreams of those who look to the future with hope and faith. So I think it tells our story and captures our essence better than does the Star-Spangled Banner, and it is so much easier to sing. However, I still get a lump in my throat whenever our national anthem is played, particularly at venues like the Olympics, or in times of tragedy, as it is used to remind us of who and what we are as Americans. The Star-Spangled Banner uses only the first verse of the poem, The Defense of Fort McHenry, written by the 35-year-old Francis Scott Key in 1814 after he witnessed the bombing of Baltimore by the British. The bombardment continued throughout a rainy night, and it wasn't until the following day that Key, held as a prisoner on a British ship during the duration of the attack, realized the outcome when he saw the American flag still flying. Inspired by the victory in the sight of Old Glory with its 13 stars and stripes, proudly waving, he wrote his poem on the back of a letter that he had in his pocket. This was then taken by Key's brother-in-law, Judge Joseph Nicholson, to a Baltimore printer when he realized the words fit a popular melody by John Smith, which was the official song of a London, England amateur musicians group. On September 22, newspapers, the Baltimore Patriot and the American, printed the song, which was subsequently published together with the tune by Thomas Carr, owner of Baltimore's Carr Music Store, under the title The Star-Spangled Banner. In its first known public performance, it was in October at a local tavern. Gaining in popularity throughout the 19th century, it was on July 27, 1889, that the Secretary of the Navy, Benjamin Tracy, signed an order directing that the Star-Spangled Banner would be played at the raising of the American flag. It made its first appearance at a baseball game in Philadelphia in 1897, and President Woodrow Wilson declared in 1916 that it be played at all military occurrences. It was played during the seventh inning stretch during the 1918 World Series, but it wasn't until after World War II that the tradition of playing it before every baseball game became a reality. Finally, on March 3, 1931, President Herbert Hoover signed into law a bill adopting the Star-Spangled Banner as our national anthem. I would suggest that the most important and significant line of the song is the last one, "O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave," because this says something vital about our American deals and character, or certainly what we ought to be striving for. Most Americans have an intense love of their country. Indeed, a 2001 study of 33 nations by the National Opinion Research Center of the University of Chicago ranked the United States first in national pride. You would think, would you not, that such a powerful allegiance would bring us together? Often it does, particularly on occasions like Independence Day, at least as far as the celebrations are concerned. But unfortunately, our love of country too frequently divides us. Last year on the 4th of July, there was a cartoon in the Tampa Bay Times which portrayed two very angry men, nose to nose, screaming at each other. One, a protester type with beard and earring, had on an Occupy Wall Street t-shirt. The other was wearing a Revolutionary War-style tricorn hat. Both had American flags sewn to the shirt sleeves at their shoulder. And they were yelling, "Happy birthday to my country!" Underneath the cartoon was printed rather cryptically, "On Independence Day, everybody is a patriot." That pretty well describes the current situation. Our national debates now transcend disagreements over this or that spending program or tax, and have become, at least in the minds of the combatants, a climactic struggle for the nature and soul of America. I see that in some of the emails I receive in which the writer accuses those with whom he or she politically disagrees of destroying his or her country. His or her country. As if the United States doesn't also belong to those on the other side of the argument, and as if they don't really care about it. We have all heard the criticisms ad nauseum. One side is allegedly bent on inserting government into every aspect of our lives and suffocating individual responsibility and effort. The other side is supposedly beholden to the rich, committed to survival of the fittest, and indifferent to everyone else. Here is a case where perhaps a germ of truth found on each side leads to gross exaggerations and ridiculous accusations, which in the final analysis vilify and demonize those who express and support opposing views. If you are convinced that these are at stake, and that your side's defeat would extinguish the most valuable and virtuous aspects of America, then the other side is to be despised and demolished. Your very love of country impels you to extremes of rhetoric and belief. It nudges you to hate the other side. Apparently, we no longer wish to deal logically and cooperatively with differences of opinion and approach, accepting that those who see things differently might be just as concerned and caring about the welfare and future of the nation and its citizens as we are. Rather, we choose to attack them with everything we've got in a no-holds-barred fashion and see compromise even on issues that have nothing to do with ethics or morality as a dirty word. Columnist Robert Samuelson wrote in the July 4, 2012 issue of the Tampa Bay Times concerning the problem Americans seem to have with determining which is more important, freedom or equality. When asked, the majority chose freedom, but in their voting habits seem to prefer security. He wrote, "The inconsistencies and contradictions won't soon vanish. But in today's politically poisoned climate, righteousness is at a premium and historical reality at a discount. Each side, whether liberal or conservative, Republican or Democrat, believes that has a monopoly on historical truth. The fear that the existence of their version of America is threatened sows discord and explains why love of country has become a double-edged sword, dividing us when it might unite." Is this a completely new phenomenon? Unfortunately, no. We Americans have always been a fractious, argumentative, contentious people, united in our demand for the freedom to vociferously express our differences, no matter how nasty the means we use. And we can look back at the Civil War era and remember what was said about Abraham Lincoln by his enemies before and during the conflict to see the truth of what I just stated. Fortunately, there are periodic respites from the implementation of our rivalries, like when we celebrate our country's founding with picnics and parades, with fireworks and flag waving, like when the national anthem is played and sung with emotion and pride, like when we remember those who have died for the welfare of our nation, like when we too infrequently come together to rejoice in what is right and good and admirable about America. But such occasions are more and more few and far between. And with the presidential campaign already started, it is only going to get worse. Is there then no hope that we can come together as a united nation? If history is any kind of guide, there is hope. Let's take a look at the presidential election of 1800, which pitted two of the giants of American history against each other, President John Adams and Vice President Thomas Jefferson. A presidential election which still ranks as one of the nation's most rancorous. Jefferson's victory led to a lengthy feud between the two men who had once been such good friends, but which he eased years later as they again began to correspond with one another. Despite intense political differences, they eventually renewed their friendship and, ironically, died on the same day, July 4, 1826. Their leadership, among the most revered in American history, and their reconciliation have become testaments to the nation's ability to disagree and still come together. But they both had to be willing to be open to the possibility and to take action. We can be united in freedom despite our differences, but not without mutual respect and tolerance. I read to you earlier from the book of Isaiah, words about peace which are reiterated in Micah and Joel. Israel throughout its history has been a hotbed of war and conquest. It seems they were constantly fighting and still are, and have endured one oppressor after another. So it is no wonder that one of their greatest desires was and is for peace. However, what Israel seeks is not just peace with and from outside attack, but also internally. As it was then, so it is now. As with America, there seems to be constant turmoil and disruption as leaders and citizens demean and denigrate those with opposing views. Isaiah called upon the people to change and declared that God would somehow force them to beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. And he suggested that this would not happen until they learned a new way to live and relate to one another. Are our options any different? We love our country, and we should feel privileged to be so lucky as to call ourselves Americans. Now, this transcends mere patriotism. I think we all believe in what this nation stands for, even though we must acknowledge that we as individuals are no better than most, with selfishness and prejudice also part of our makeup. As a society, we have often violated our loftiest ideals, including the acceptance of slavery, which began in 1787 and the results of which still linger today. Additionally, our loud insistence regarding our exceptionalism offends millions and millions of non-Americans who find us primarily exceptional in our boasting. But such caveats do not and should not dim our love of our country. Again, quoting Robert Samuelson, I am still stirred by the Star-Spangled Banner. I think our messy mixture of democratic traditions, respect for the individual, and economic dynamism commands a unique place in human history. In most societies, people are marked by where they were born, their ethnic heritage, or religious conviction. In the United States, these are secondary. American self-identity springs from the beliefs on which this country was founded, including the belief that no one is automatically better than anyone else simply by virtue of birth. Francis Scott Key was thrilled when he saw the flag still flying or the land of the free and the home of the brave. May this country also strive to be what Key's words claimed it to be, and may we, with the help of the divine, make ourselves worthy to be citizens of such a nation. Indeed, may the ideals America stands for be made real. It's up to us. On the night before his death, Jesus gathered in an upper room in Jerusalem and invited his friends and followers to participate in the Passover meal with him.